Tom Barrett leaned back in a lawn chair on his freshly tiled patio, the Arizona sun gleaming off the brand new solar panels, mounted to his roof like chrome wings. He smiled, satisfied. This was supposed to be his calm chapter. Retired, divorced, debt-free, and finally living in a house of his own with no landlord, no restrictions, and, most importantly, no HOA. His realtor had emphasized it 3 times. No homeowners association, Mr. Barrett. This neighborhood is completely independent. It was the clincher for Tom, who had heard too many horror stories of overreaching HOA boards dictating grass height and paint colors. Now, his electricity bills were about to drop to 0, and he could do as he pleased. That morning, a courier van pulled up to his driveway and dropped off a thick manila envelope marked Urgent, Legal Notice. He figured it was junk, maybe a warranty scam, or some solar rebate paperwork. But as he slit the seal open, he froze. Inside was a typed legal summons. At the top, in bold, summons to appear. Homeowners Association violation. Violation. Unauthorized exterior modification. Solar panels. Fine. 11R200 remedy. Immediate removal of solar equipment. Court date, May 15th. Tom blinked. He read it again. And again. There was no mistake. It listed his full name, his exact property, address, and referred to an HOA he'd never heard of. The Cienega Springs Preservation Committee. He had no idea what that was. He walked inside, pulled out his home purchase documents, and rifled through them. He found the title, the deed, the zoning paperwork. Nothing mentioned an HOA. No covenants, no restrictions, no dues. His hands trembled slightly as he dialed his realtor. Janine? Hey, I just got something crazy. Some HOA is suing me. There was a pause on the line. Then, that's impossible, Tom. I checked. That lot wasn't part of any HOA. Hasn't been since it was subdivided in 2004. Then why am I being sued? That doesn't make any sense. Unless something changed after the fact. Tom stepped outside again, scanning the quiet cul-de-sac. A neighbor across the street was watering his lawn, but gave Tom a tight, suspicious glance and turned away. Another woman walking her dog slowed down when she saw the envelope in Tom's hand, then picked up her pace and crossed the street. That night, a black SUV with no license plate frame pulled into the end of the street and sat with its lights off for 20 minutes. Tom noticed it from his front window. No one got out. It just sat there, silent, engine running, watching. He called the non-emergency police line, but the SUV left 2 minutes before a cruiser arrived. The officer shrugged. Could be someone lost. Happens. But Tom's instincts were alert now. Something about this felt off. Not just a mistake, but deliberate. He didn't sleep well that night. He kept turning over the letter in his mind. The legal jargon, the timing. Why had this come right after the solar panels were installed? Who exactly was the Cienega Springs Preservation Committee? And why had he never heard of them until now? At 3:47 a.m., unable to shake the tension, Tom opened his laptop and began researching. What he would uncover in the coming days would take him far beyond a mere legal dispute and into a tangled web of power, intimidation, and a rogue HOA willing to bend reality to keep control. He had no idea yet. He was already the target of a game he never agreed to play. The next morning, Tom headed to the county recorder's office downtown. He brought every paper from his home purchase, the deed, the title insurance, the zoning clearance, and most importantly, the legal parcel map. He was determined to prove, on record, that he was not part of any HOA, the clerk, a soft-spoken woman in her 40s, tapped her keyboard as Tom waited across the counter. Her eyes scanned the screen, then darted back to him. "Your parcel's address is 107 East Mesa Terrace." "That's right." She clicked again, her tone faltering. "It's strange. You're not listed under the main Cienega Springs HOA record. But there's a second filing, much smaller, filed 5 years ago. Shows your parcel added under something called an annexation amendment." Tom's stomach dropped. "Can they do that without asking me?" The clerk hesitated. "Legally, no. Not without a signed consent from the homeowner at the time of amendment." "Did you sign anything like that?" "Absolutely not. I didn't even live here 5 years ago." She printed a copy of the document. The signature next to homeowner consent was scribbled, vague. It didn't match his name, or anyone who'd owned the home, according to his closing documents. It looked like a forgery. He left with a folder full of copies, his pulse thudding in his ears. On the drive home, his phone buzzed. A voicemail from a number he didn't recognize. He played it on speaker. "Mr. Barrett, this is the Office of Compliance from Cienega Springs Preservation Committee. You are in direct violation of Covenant 4B. Failure to resolve this violation may result in daily penalties, liens, and loss of certain utilities. Consider this your final warning." "Utilities?" The voice was clipped, almost robotic. Tom replayed it twice. It sounded like a threat. He turned into his neighborhood and noticed something new. A sign freshly staked in his front yard. "Violation, unapproved structure." In bold red. Someone had driven it into his lawn while he was out. His neighbors had definitely seen it. Anger flared in his chest. He stormed over to yank it from the ground, only to spot a small security, a camera tied to a tree across the street, pointing directly at him. Later that day, he tried knocking on a few neighbors' doors. Most gave vague, uncomfortable answers, or didn't answer at all. But finally, an elderly man named Doug cracked. "Open his screen door 2 houses down. I'm not trying to start trouble," Tom said. "I just want to understand what's going on." "Did you get added to the HOA too?" Doug's eyes darted around nervously. "You're new here. You don't know how this works." "Then tell me." Doug sighed, rubbing his temples. "Pike's been running the show for years. Calls himself the president, but no one voted. He adds lots when owners move out, quietly. Some folks fight it, but they either move or they give in. One guy put in a cactus garden instead of grass. Had a lien slapped on him in a month." "Wait, Pike? As in Gerald Pike?" Doug nodded, eyes narrowing. "Lives up on the ridge. Big house, fake Spanish tiles. Thinks he owns the whole block." That night, Tom checked Pike's name online. Turns out, Pike had a history. 3 small claims cases filed against him in the past 7 years. All from homeowners, all mysteriously dismissed. Tom sat at his desk, lit only by the glow of his monitor, staring at the so-called annexation form. The more he looked at that signature, the more it screamed fake. And if that was forged, what else had this man done? The Cienega Springs Preservation Committee wasn't just overstepping, it was hunting. Tom spent the next morning scanning and rereading every page of the so-called annexation amendment. The signature line marked homeowner consent was not only unsigned by anyone named Barrett, it wasn't even legible. It looked like someone had scribbled a squiggle and stamped it, hoping no one would notice. He wasn't just being harassed. This was fraud. By noon, he was back downtown. This time, not at the recorder's office, but at a law firm nestled above an old bookstore. He had found it the night before, searching online for anyone specializing in HOA abuse cases. The name that kept popping up was Maria Delgado. Maria was in her late 30s, sharp-eyed, fast-talking, and not the least bit surprised by Tom's story. "You're the fourth homeowner I've spoken to in Cienega Springs," she said, flipping through the documents he brought. "And the third who never agreed to join." Tom sat forward. "Wait, so this has happened before?" She nodded. "Gerald Pike's been running a scam for years. He creates these micro HOA zones by amending the original charter and quietly annexing properties that weren't part of the original plat. He usually targets properties during ownership transitions, makes it look legit to outsiders, then goes after the new owners with violations until they cave or sell. That's illegal, right? Absolutely. But here's the catch. He's just careful enough. He files paperwork that looks official. Most people don't have the time or money to fight him. Some settle, others sell, and Pike gets stronger." Maria leaned back, tapping a pen against her notepad. "But if you're willing to push back, we might have something, especially if that signature's forged." Tom nodded. "I'm not rolling over," she smiled. "Good, because it's about to get loud." By the next day, Maria had filed a formal demand for dismissal of the summons and a counter-suit for harassment, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The moment it hit the clerk's desk, things started to shift. Tom woke up to find that the violation sign had been removed from his lawn. A notice appeared in his mailbox. "Cienega Springs Committee is open to settlement discussion." A softer tone, no threats. But Tom knew it wasn't an olive branch. It was bait. Later that afternoon, a black sedan idled outside his home for nearly an hour. It had tinted windows and didn't move even when Tom walked right up to the curb and stared. When he finally approached it, the car rolled forward, slow, smooth, and disappeared around the corner. Tom started documenting everything. He bought a body cam, installed fresh security cameras with cloud backups, and kept a journal of every incident. If Pike wanted to play quiet intimidation, Tom would make sure every move was on record. That night, a ping hit his email. It was from a burner account. No name, just an address. Subject: "You're not alone." Attached: a PDF. Title: "Minutes, HOA Meeting, February 18th. Highlighted: a section where Pike allegedly says, "The new guy with the solar panels. We'll fold him in or freeze him out, like the last two." Tom's heart thudded. If those were real HOA meeting minutes, someone inside was leaking. And if Pike had done this before, there might be more victims. People pushed out, threatened, into silence. He forwarded the document to Maria immediately. Moments later, she replied, "We just found our crack. Let's pry it open." Tom realized then, this wasn't just about solar panels. It was about exposing the quiet empire of a man who thought no one would ever fight back. 3 days after Maria filed the counterclaim, Tom's phone began buzzing non-stop. First came the emails, each more aggressive than the last. Notices from the so-called Cienega Springs Preservation Committee flooded in with escalating penalties. $250 per day for non-compliance. Interest accruing hourly. Then came a letter warning of a property lien, claiming the HOA had the legal right to collect delinquent assessments, but Tom had never signed any membership agreement. No dues, no vote, no contract. And yet, the language in these notices grew bolder, more confident, as if Pike and his people were daring him to blink. Then, his water pressure dropped. Not a little, significantly. The kitchen faucet sputtered and hissed. The shower ran cold. Tom called the utility company, but they reported no service issues on record. He asked if anyone had requested a change to his account. There had. A service change order had been submitted in his name, signed digitally. A fake email address was listed as the contact. The account was scheduled for disconnection the following week. His stomach sank. Someone was trying to quietly shut him down, one piece at a time. He called Maria. She didn't sound surprised. It's Pike's playbook. I've seen this before. Manufactured service issues, delayed trash pickups, even reported code violations. He creates pressure points to wear people down. It's legal harassment disguised as incompetence. That evening, Tom installed 4 new security cameras with cloud backups and infrared night vision. He made sure they were visible, mounted high on the eaves, blinking red. 2 hours after installation, the feed went black. Every camera went offline at the same moment. Tom rushed outside and found the power cord slashed cleanly at the base. Someone had been watching and knew exactly when and where to cut. He filed a police report, but the officer barely concealed his disinterest. Maybe it was a raccoon, the cop muttered. As he scribbled notes, Tom's jaw tightened. A raccoon with wire cutters, the cop shrugged. You'd be surprised. That night, sleep came in jagged bursts. At 2:12 a.m., his motion light flared in the backyard. He jumped up, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped out with his phone. Recording. Nothing. Just the wind through the Palo Verde trees and a faint creak from the old wooden fence. He stood there for a long time, feeling like he wasn't alone. The next morning, he found a fresh printout in his mailbox. A color photo of him standing in his driveway, arms crossed, staring directly at the camera. It was time-stamped. From the night before, someone had been photographing him from the street. The caption scrolled in Sharpie read, "You're being watched. Stay in your lane." He showed it to Maria. She sighed. They're trying to break you psychologically. You're the first one pushing back this hard, and they're scared. That means we're close. Tom looked her dead in the eye. I'm not going anywhere. Later that day, Maria got a call from someone unexpected. A current HOA board member, named Lisa Rourke. She wanted to talk, but not by phone. They met in a diner outside the neighborhood. Lisa was nervous, constantly checking the window. After a long silence, she whispered, "They're making us do things, sending violations we don't vote on. Pike has his own attorney now, not the HOA's." Maria leaned in. "Do you have proof?" Lisa nodded slowly. "If I give you the emails, you didn't get them from me. Understand?" Tom knew then. This wasn't just a neighborhood dispute anymore. It was the beginning of a full-scale takedown. Tom sat in the corner booth of the diner, nursing a black coffee that had long gone cold. Across from him, Maria scanned the USB drive Lisa Rourke had nervously handed over, before hurrying out the side exit without looking back. Inside were 42 emails, stretching over the past year, each one damning. Subject lines read like a manual in corruption. Handle the Barrett situation quietly. Remind Doug about his wife's expired landscaping permit. Remove minutes mentioning these. Vote delay. Delete the February video. And then the big one, sent from Pike's personal Gmail account to the HOA board's private thread. He won't bend. Time to isolate him. Start the code complaints. We'll bury him in paper. Tom's knuckles whitened around the ceramics mug. He's orchestrating every move. Maria nodded grimly. And now we have the rope to hang him with. They drove straight to the courthouse and amended their countersuit to include intentional fraud, abuse of authority, evidence tampering, and coercion. Maria also filed for a temporary injunction to freeze any further action from the HOA against it. Tom. The judge didn't smile, but he didn't dismiss it either. A hearing date was set, 3 weeks out, but the moment the filing went public, the real war began. That night, Tom's mailbox was smashed. Not just dented, obliterated. Pieces scattered across his driveway like confetti. Then came the flyers, hundreds of them, tucked into mailboxes, slid under doors, pinned to trees. Cheap paper, bold red ink. Solar parasite Tom Barrett is suing our HOA, and that means you. Your dues are going to his lawyer. Say no to freeloaders. Tom walked the block that evening and pulled 10 from various yards himself. Some neighbors just stared at him. Others avoided eye contact altogether. But something had changed. 2 doors down, Doug, normally silent, gave him a nod and whispered, "Don't let up." Across the street, a woman named Rena gave him a thumbs up. From behind her blinds, a quiet resistance was beginning to take shape. The next day, Lisa Rock contacted Maria again. "I have something else," she whispered over the phone. "Pike's been using HOA funds for private legal bills." "What kind of proof?" Maria asked. Lisa exhaled. "Invoices, check stubs, even retainer payments made under the HOA's name. But they go to a firm that only represents Pike." She agreed to drop them off anonymously. But when the manila envelope arrived at Maria's office, something else was inside. A photograph. Grainy, black and white. Tom, at home, working at his desk through the front window. The date was from last week. Another message was scrawled on the back. "You really think you're the first?" Maria turned it over silently. Tom stared at it, rage and fear boiling together. "He's watching me through my own window." Maria didn't flinch. "Good. Let him watch. Because next week, we file a subpoena for Pike's financials." She paused, her tone sharpening. "And then we bring in the press." Tom realized in that moment, this wasn't a war for his yard or even his house anymore. It was a battle over truth, over a system that had festered behind fake bylaws and rigged signatures, in plain sight, for years. But now the infection was out in the open, and it was Pike's turn to feel pressure. The subpoena went out on a Monday. By Wednesday, everything changed. Tom had expected Pike to respond with more intimidation, more threats. But instead, the HOA's once pristine website went offline. Their violation tracker portal, gone. The neighborhood forums, once ablaze with anti-Tom rhetoric, were eerily silent. At first, Tom thought it was a fluke, a glitch. But Maria knew better. "He's scrubbing records," she said. "Emails, documents, anything digital. He knows if we get his financials. We'll find more than misspent dues. We'll find criminal charges." That afternoon, a local, investigative reporter named Jenna Ayers showed up at Tom's front door. She was sharp, in her early 40s, with a notepad always in one hand and a recorder in the other. "I got a tip," she said. "Something about a solar panel homeowner being sued by an HOA he never joined." Maria had tipped her off. Tom invited her in. He laid out the story, the forged annexation, the fake fines, the broken cameras, the midnight photographs, the flyers, the whistleblower. Jenna took it all in with the calm of someone used to corruption. When Tom handed her a printed copy of Pike's email, "Start the code complaints. We'll bury him in paper." Her eyes lit up. "This," she said, holding it up, "is gasoline." 2 days later, Channel 8, Action News aired the story. The headline screamed, "HOA fraud. Homeowner fights back against rogue committee." Tom watched it with Maria in her office. Lisa Rourke was in the segment, her voice disguised, face shadowed. But her words were clear. "We weren't voting. He was dictating. We just signed what we were told to." The fallout was immediate. Tom's inbox filled with support from neighbors he'd never even met. One family down the street dropped off a pie and a handwritten note. Thank you for standing up. We were scared too, but not everyone was happy. At 1:37 a.m., Tom's doorbell rang. He checked the live camera feed. A man in a dark hoodie, holding nothing, just standing there, staring at the door. He didn't ring again. He didn't knock. He simply stood for nearly 10 minutes before walking off into the night. Tom didn't sleep. In the morning, Maria called with the results of the subpoena. Pike's personal legal bills had been paid through HOA checks. Over $18,000 in administrative expenses, rerouted to a firm that didn't even specialize in HOA law. Several payments were made after the board had voted not to pursue litigation. He's exposed, Maria said. Every dollar is a nail in his coffin. The next HOA meeting, held in the community center, was overflowing. Folding chairs ran out. Neighbors stood shoulder to shoulder, clutching printed flyers with words like fraud, misuse of funds, and resign. Pike entered late. He looked smaller than usual. No suit, no tie, just a grey polo soaked in sweat. As he stepped to the microphone, boos erupted. Tom watched from the back, arms crossed. Pike cleared his throat. There's been a lot of misinformation. A voice interrupted him from the crowd. What about the fake fines, Gerald? Another. What about Barrett's forged annexation? And then Lisa stood, lifting a stack of printouts. I have the emails, she said. Every single one. And if you won't step down, then I motion for removal. The crowd thundered, and, in that moment, Tom saw it. The precise second Pike realized his throne had cracked. Not with a bang, but with truth, paper, and persistence. The motion to remove Pike passed almost instantly, voiced, seconded, and confirmed with a rising sea of hands. He stood frozen at the podium as the board secretary, trembling but resolute, read aloud from the bylaws he himself had once weaponized. Any board member found to have acted with misconduct may be removed by majority vote during a publicly called meeting. Pike's eyes darted across the crowd. Once his subjects, now a jury. No one looked away. Lisa Rourke approached the front and gently nudged him aside. You're done, Gerald. He didn't argue, just walked stiffly off stage, pushing past Tom, on his way out the door. Their eyes met for one icy second. Rage and disbelief, radiating from Pike like heat off asphalt. Tom didn't flinch. Later that night, Maria received a call from a local prosecutor. We saw the Channel 8 story. Can you share those documents? The house of cards was collapsing. Over the next week, revelations poured out. A forensic accountant uncovered misappropriated funds going back 3 years, payments to fake contractors, reimbursement checks written to a company registered under Pike's wife's maiden name. HOA dues had paid for a patio extension, a new roof on his personal vacation cabin, and even a $600 espresso machine marked as common area hospitality. Neighbors were furious. Lawsuits followed. A class action was filed by over 30 homeowners, citing financial fraud, emotional distress, and the deliberate suppression of community votes. Pike went underground. No one had seen him since the meeting. His house went dark, shades pulled tight, mail piling at the door. Tom, meanwhile, finally slept through the night. The temporary injunction became permanent. The court ruled that Tom had never been legally bound to the HOA's jurisdiction, nullifying every fine and complaint filed against him. His solar panels remained untouched, now almost symbolic, shining defiantly against the backdrop of the desert sky. But the fallout didn't stop with Pike. 3 other board members resigned under pressure once it became clear they'd signed blank approvals without reading them. Lisa stayed, nervous but determined. and was elected interim president with a unanimous vote. Her first order of business: re-establish transparency. Every meeting would now be recorded and posted publicly. Finances audited quarterly. No one would ever again be fined without written, reviewed documentation, and homeowners would now vote on all policy changes. But the most startling moment came when Maria received a package. No return address, just her name written in blocky caps. Inside were photos, hundreds of them, neighbors in their yards, kids biking down the street, packages being delivered, Tom reading a book on his porch, each one stamped with dates and times. An eerie, meticulous log. Some were printed, others just contact sheets. It was a library of surveillance. A sticky note was attached to the top photo. I was hired to watch. But after Channel 8 aired the story, I quit. You were right to fight back. Maria stared at the note, then looked at Tom. Someone hired a private eye, she whispered. He was building a blackmail archive. Tom felt the last puzzle piece click into place. Pike had planned everything, not just fines and flyers, but long-term intimidation. He wanted to rule through fear. The moment someone stood up, he tried to crush them quietly. But it didn't work this time, because someone stood up and didn't back down. And now, Pike's legacy wasn't power. It was failure. The courtroom was packed on the day of the final hearing. Reporters lined the benches, cameras flashed, and the air buzzed with anticipation. For months, Cienega Springs had been the center of a battle that spilled far beyond a neighborhood dispute. It had become a symbol of standing up against corruption and abuse. Tom Barrett sat quietly, his jaw tight, but his eyes clear. Beside him, Maria reviewed her notes one last time. Lisa Rourke sat near the front, her fingers clenched in quiet determination. The judge entered and took his seat. The room hushed. After reviewing the evidence, the judge began, including extensive financial records, sworn testimonies, and forensic analyses. This court finds that Gerald Pike and his accomplices engaged in fraudulent activities, misuse of HOA funds, and illegal annexation practices. He paused, scanning the courtroom. The actions taken against Mr. Barrett were not only unlawful, but malicious in intent. A murmur swept through the crowd. The court hereby orders the immediate dismissal of all violations and liens placed against Mr. Barrett's property. Furthermore, a restitution fund shall be established for affected homeowners, funded by the sale of Pike's assets, and reimbursement from misappropriated HOA funds. Tom exhaled deeply, a weight lifting from his shoulders. The nightmare was finally over. Outside, the reporters swarmed him. Mr. Barrett, how does it feel to win? Tom smiled, eyes scanning the crowd of neighbors who had rallied behind him. It's more than a win. It's proof that no one is above the law, not even a shadowy HOA boss. But just as the victory seemed complete, Maria pulled him aside. There's one more thing. She handed him a letter, sealed and stamped. Tom broke the seal and unfolded it. Inside was a note from Pike, handwritten in jagged script. You won this battle, Barrett, but watch your back. Some things are buried for a reason. Tom's heart skipped. The fight wasn't completely over. The shadows lingered, yet the message only steeled his resolve. That evening, Tom walked outside to his backyard, where his solar panels gleamed in the fading light. Neighbors gathered around, offering congratulations, stories of their own struggles, and hopes for a cleaner, fairer community. Lisa approached, shaking his hand. We've started rebuilding. New policies, new leadership. We want this place to be a home, not a battleground. Tom nodded. And I'll help however I can. Months later, the neighborhood had transformed. Meetings were open and well attended. Transparency became the new rule, not the exception. The dark legacy of Pike was replaced by a community reclaiming its voice. One afternoon, as Tom adjusted a loose solar panel, his phone buzzed, a text message. "If you ever need help, you know where to find me." It was from Lisa. He smiled. For the first time in a long time, Tom felt truly at home.